My name is Sylvia. You can find me on sylviacomics.com. Yeah, it's quite simple because I do comics. So sylviacomics.com. So what I'm doing is basically narrative illustration and comics. Since when I was a kid, I really like reading comics. I like the simplicity and elegance in comic, how you can tell a story with just a few lines, black and white. So I'm not a very fine art person. Fine art person use a lot of layers of color to render things into a realistic way. But comics goes to the other end, is more abstract but efficient. So I think that's what I want to do. Comics involving storytelling takes more time. So currently, since I also work as a teacher, teaching figure drawing, figures, which is also the basic in drawing. So I'm mainly working on illustration, single illustration. So, but still, I hope to do a more like longer, more completed comic before I die. Like ultimate goal.
This as well?
I lived in, it was quite a long journey, which led me to New Zealand here. Before my undergraduate was in Hong Kong. I studied visual art and then worked as a graphic designer for several years. And then I still want to draw, so which is quite different from design. So I went to California to pursue a master's degree in illustration and graphic novel. And then I worked as a teacher for several years again. And then during COVID, I went back to China, which is my hometown. And then after that, I went here. It's about because some family issue. My family got the visa, so it's I don't need to worry too much about my visa here. But it's really hard in United States if you want to survive as a freelance illustrator. They need more technique people, engineer field. So, but I think it's depends on my personality and my work status. I found that a quiet place actually is better for my working pattern. I have also upload my work on Twitter and Instagram. On site, I will attend Armageddon and Overload. I try to attend these to sell some physical work, printed works. It's also a very new experience for me to sell my work in real life to people, to share my work with others. Because before the period of COVID took a very long time, I was like hiding in my cave to draw, to create, but I seldom step out to communicate with people. So yeah, it's very precious experience for me to do this. Yes, since about my comics, the little character, I do it as a diary to visualize my idea. Since daily, I always have a lot of random idea which I want to record. But words is not enough. I always want to capture the action, so it's quite like a diary. And since me and my girlfriend were separated for a very long time during COVID, so that was quite a motivation for me to start to draw it as a diary. So the title was a long distance diary. It's quite when I draw, it allows me to examine my life in a more logic way, so I don't feel that emotional. I can like project my emotion into this comics, so I feel better control in my life. She likes the cute character more, but for some of the sensitive illustration, she doesn't quite like it. She says it's too sensitive. There's no doubt your work got banned in China. Yeah, in a lot of occasions, the post was deleted by the platform. I always got an email from the platform. It was so scary, and my account on Redbook was once banned for half a year. So most of the time, from my own perspective, I will finish it and show it to her. It's kind of like a diary and a note to her. But after she came here to New Zealand, when we got into the real daily life, I draw a little less since life is more complicated. So sometimes I don't have time to draw. So, but the habit, since like in daily life, I know sometimes when I got some emotion, I still need to draw to resolve myself. Actually, the illustration which I'm doing right now, daily, kind of like a mixture of memory and reality. Sometimes if it's a fun idea or a cute idea, I will present in a comic like that. So kind of like different container for the ideas. In China, on the platforms, they have very strict rules, but I think generally, internationally, a lot of artists that I like, that I appreciate, I find that the boundary of sensitive or explicit is quite blurred. I think what I'm drawing, what I want to express is love and the raw emotion of human being. I don't want to define my work in some terms. Some of the fans, they will leave a message. Your work is so gentle. I think gentle is what I want to present. Since I personally am a very sensitive person, INFJ, I got really emotional, and so sometimes if I have too many emotion, I can't figure out. I will feel confused. So drawing helps me to. It's like a therapy. It helps me to talk to myself, to communicate. Yeah, it's really a difficult question, like a dilemma for everyone. It's about how do you recognize yourself? Whether you have the courage to fight with the environment. I feel quite lucky because even though I'm born in China, but I pursue my career in other part of the world, especially in California. It's quite open to all genders. Different type of sexuality are accepted there. Also, my parents are quite. My mother is a psychologist. She does therapy, counseling for different type of people. Just recently, I got to know that when I was in high school, when I myself didn't know my sexuality, she already consult several couples which were lesbians, but she didn't tell me at that time. But she got to know that far more earlier, before I told her that I like girls. So I feel way more lucky than a lot of people on my age. So I feel like that's a really gift for me. but the environment in China is really hard. One of my friend, she and her girlfriend plans to immigrate to Europe. So they were trying to study Italian, try to get the degree, the language test, pass the language test, and then pursue a offer in Italy, and then plan to immigrate there. So they have their plan. So I think most of the people, because they need to survive, they need to find a way to survive. Whether you can persuade yourself going out to challenge something completely different and difficult, or you choose to stay in your comfort zone and hide as I forgot the name. The other side for homosexual,
Heterosexual.
Heterosexual, which is more normal. So a lot of people hide like that in order to survive in their surrounding. But it's very difficult for me to hide. My girlfriend's parents doesn't accept her sexuality. So when I visit her at her home, I have to pretend I'm just a very close friend. Even though that was a very short period, it was so difficult for me. I couldn't communicate in the real me, which is way more torturing than I thought. So I know it's my personality. I have to escape. I don't want to live in the huge prison in China, even though that's my home. So I have to escape to other part of the world. Yes, because usually for people, parents are their like backyard. If you have trouble at your home, it's very hard to be yourself. It's like fighting against your homeland. But for me, I feel quite lucky. My mother very naturally accepts what I am. That's they who gave me the courage. I think artwork, no matter it's drawing or novel, are all based on your own experience. Even though you change the name of the character, but they are part of you. So I don't think it's a thing to concern about, since the way I draw them is from love, from very simple, just love, from caring and some sensitive emotion. I think truth is how you relate to people. Sometimes I remember for this cover, for this one, when I drew this one, in the whole month I cried a lot. It was because we had some fight. It was we have very different personality. Even though you have a partner, it's not always happy every day. It's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of dealing with another person. It's really difficult. It's also a life course for yourself. To dealing with yourself, you have to grow. You have to deal with something more than your ability. So when I capture those emotions, I feel these are also part of me, even though they're not happy. I think artwork, no matter it's drawing or novel, are all based on your own experience. Even though you change the name of the character, but they are part of you. So I don't think it's a thing to concern about, since the way I draw them is from love, from very simple, just love, from caring and some sensitive emotion. I think truth is how you relate to people. Sometimes I remember for this cover, for this one, when I drew this one, in the whole month I cried a lot. It was because we had some fight. It was we have very different personality. Even though you have a partner, it's not always happy every day. It's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of dealing with another person. It's really difficult. It's also a life course for yourself to dealing with yourself. You have to grow. You have to deal with something more than your ability. So when I capture those emotions, I feel these are also part of me, even though they're not happy. Like if you read a book, you can relate to the parts that you have a similar experience. So it's every drawing when I finish, I show it to people. So the part which they can resonate are all different. Like 1,000 audience, there are 1,000 Hamlet. So I just like you said, it's quite personal, so I can't control what people think. I just hope they can get some their mind, their heart can settle down when they are reading my drawing. Since every time when I draw, I feel like every object, every prop in the scene means something. Like my instructor always said, if you draw a gun, the gun must shoot. Every prop in your scene has its goal or has a purpose. So that's why I always try to do the details well. If I don't know how to draw an apple, I need to find reference for apple. So I believe each of the detail can show the audience the I mean, it's like a vibe or a very abstract story. I always have a lot of drafts in my folder, which I haven't finished yet. Recently, I'm watching the series called Arcane, a quite famous TV series, so I'm doing some fan art for it. I didn't do much fan art before, but this time the story was really good. I find a lot of complex interaction between the characters. They have extremely different personality, and their decide and their their personality brings out all the conflict. So I feel quite related to some of the characters, so that's the reason I decided to draw some fan art. But still, drawing fan art is like I borrow other people's great ideas and I build something on top of that. I still feel like it's not my original art. So after that, I'll go back to original art.
But it could probably help stimulate ideas for you because you watch other people story and work would make you feel inspired, maybe.
Yes. In the story, even though it's a fantasy story, based on some magic setting or a lot of surrealistic setting, but the story is still based on human nature. Human nature is always the same. That's why we can relate to the character, how they behave, how they react to dangers and crisis. So one of the characters is really emotional. After she got betrayed by her sister, she turned to their enemy, become part of that, become a viral character. But I can really relate to her emotion. So that's also like a new journey for me to sometimes when I watch TV series, I got quite related and emotional, and it's hard to drag myself out of the story. I'm too close to the character, so it's like a very new experience for me. Indeed, yes. Sometimes being too emotional, it's not very good in real life. Sometimes being more, it's like the shell. If you have a thicker shell, it's protect you and protect others better. But my shell is too thin, so sometimes it's like the hedgehog's dilemma. My spike, my sword is too, yeah, it's very easy to harm somebody, especially my girlfriend, because we are so close. Being related is very therapeutic, I think. Even if somebody understands your emotion, what you are thinking, it's very important. The same when I see some other great artist illustration, when I feel related, I feel quite relieved. So I think that's the point of artwork. I hope I can draw more. But it's very tricky that when I'm having a long distance relationship with my girlfriend, I was more productive. I can draw more. But now life is more complicated. Life deal with like laundry, buying grocery, and fighting with what you want to buy, what I want to buy. I don't want to eat this. So life is filled up with travel stuff, but it's a real life. Before I just because she is on the other end of the internet, we communicate online, so I have way more time for myself to draw. But also that's not a good life. I stayed in my home, in my desk too much. I didn't step out to interact with people. So now it seems like I'm experiencing something more variety, and also much more difficult. I feel like before I was like primary student, now high school student. It also led me to face my own personality, my weaks, my disadvantage in my personality, and especially when you deal with a people with a person who have very different personality. So it helps. It allows me to re-examine a lot of things in my life. I have to stand in different angles to see myself. I hope it's indeed quite like a course, like a very hard new course in my life, but I had to take it because it's part of the life. Yes. Yeah. If life is always an easy in an easy mode, that means you cannot grow up, maybe. So I think I'm still growing up, even though I'm already very old, but mentally I always need to grow. On every stage of your life, I have to learn. Before I thought the end of long distance relationship is the end. All the torture of being separated will end. But now it's a new chapter of dealing with new difficulties. There's also a lot of pain. It's different. It's totally different type of pain, but they are truth. So I'm trying to dealing with truth, and it also reminds me another novelist who actually won the Nobel Prize this year. She's a Korean novelist, Hong Kong. I forgot how to pronounce her name.
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. I haven't read her book yet, but I know.
I read her book during COVID when I locked at home. The title was Vegetarian, and I remember a quote in the inside cover of her. She said, "Writing a novel is like lighting up a match, and then you watch the fire gradually devour the little stick. Writing a novel is like I light my life up and watch how it's on fire, how it burns to the end. I feel the same way when I also try to write something, also inspired by her. When I write the novel, I feel like every sentence is part of me or my old experience. Before, maybe I just wrote it in my diary, which I didn't show anybody. But if you aim to publish this work and present it as a novel, like a fantasy novel, you can be more brave because people don't relate the character to you. But actually, it's all of the characters that are the old you or the mixture of current you. And when she wrote the story, when she wrote the story, she kept asking questions about her own life and figuring out the solution for her character, but also for herself. I feel quite related to this concept. I feel every comics or every illustration when I draw, I also try to solve myself's problem. I try to solve some confusion out of it. So creating is it's not creating for others. It's creating to heal myself, to find a solution.